The open field in Rise of Kingdoms is forever evolving and changing, and Arthur Pendragon is a really good example of the open field constantly changing. He's an absolutely meta commander who has fully changed the open field meta. So today I'll be updating my open field tier list to tell you who the best open field commanders are right now. So if you want to know the current strongest commanders in Rise of Kingdoms and who is going to get the best trades right now, you want to stick around to the end of the video. Now, I want to start off by going over how am I going to structure this list. Like, what am I going to use as my criteria? Simply, it's how good the commander is right now. I don't care if they're a horrible investment. I don't care if they're going to die off in 2 weeks. It's how good they are at the making of this tier list. So if a commander is wrecking everything on the field right now, and even if they're not a good investment, they're going to get a high rank on today's list. If they've got good debuffs, if they've got good support, if they're a good commander overall for your murder ball, again, they're going to get a good rank on the list. So the list today is really focused on the current present performance of the commanders, not really what they're going to be able to do in future. That's not important in this list. We just care about the current present performance, which is going to be the most important. Now, with that all out of the way, let's switch over to the tier list. So here is the tier list, and to be honest, it's quite simple to understand. The best is our top tier, best commanders in the game. Nothing pretty much comes close to these. They're the best of their troop type, they get the best trades, and they're going to be the strongest. Meta are really, really good. If you use them on the field right now, they're going to trade amazingly. The only thing they really lose to are the best commanders. Often, a meta commander is a primary or a secondary to one of the best commanders, but they're not as good and not as versatile as a commander that's in the best tier. Decent, you can get away with them, but they wouldn't be your number one go-to. Mid, they're pretty bad. Like, you really wouldn't do them unless you were desperate. And trash is, well, absolute garbage, so don't use the trash commanders. Starting off, though, with Gorgo, she's decent. I mean, she can get good trades still with commanders like Leo Chair. She's just not absolute meta, and she's definitely not in the best tier. Leo Chair, straight in the best. I mean, his AoE is crazy. His damage type, smite damage, is really good right now. Everything about Leo Chair is a very strong commander. There's no reason to not invest in a Leo Chair and use him on the field right now because of how powerful he is. I don't see it being something that is going to make him bad or anything. He's a very good commander, and he's probably going to stay that way for a long time as well. Ethelfled, she's mid. I mean, she's not too amazing now. Her debuffs are okay. Her damage is very average. Early KVK and stuff, she's good. KVK 1, KVK 2, but she's not the most amazing commander overall. Mulan, same situation, relatively mid. Her buffs are outdone by a lot of newer commanders, and she's not really strong enough to perform on the open field. Mehmed, decent tier, probably going towards the bottom of decent right now. Really versatile, can use him with almost anyone, but nowadays he's getting a bit power crept compared to some of the more modern commanders. Nevsky's going to go into meta. I think it's respectable to put him there because he's not the best cav commander in the game by any means. He is probably second, third, somewhere around there. He's a really, really good cav commander, and meta is an amazing tier to put him in. He's probably going to be the top of the meta tier, edging onto the best tier. I think the best commanders, though, will just slightly outpower Nevsky because they're more versatile, they're probably newer, so they've got better stats, stuff like that will make them beat Nevsky overall. But meta, really good spot for Nevsky in my opinion. He's not the absolute peak in the game, but he's definitely very close. Alexander the Great, he's decent, can run in with Leo Chair, really good KVK 2 of course, and you can commander swap him. So I'm not a big hater on Alex. I think he's still pretty good in the current meta, and you could get away with him if you did have him, but I'm sure most people watching would have commander swapped him by now. Attila's probably decent-ish. He's edging onto the mid tier. He's not the most amazing, can get away with him with a Takeda. It's not the best March, but I don't mind Attila. He's got some unique uses. He can be used as a rally as well, which is interesting. Obviously, we're just looking at open field today, but he does have his use cases. He is not the worst commander in the game. Xiao, trash, to be honest, outside of KVK 1. John, or this might be Hyundai, I forget by their profile pictures, but John or Hyundai, maybe that's John, this is Stefan. These two range commanders, they're relatively decent. I don't think they're meta. I think there are better range commanders. I would just put those range commanders in right now. But the two new range commanders, or newer range commanders, they're not bad. They are pretty average in my opinion. Not ridiculously overpowered, but they do have their strength. However, Gorbato, and I'm pretty sure it is not Garjamada. What I've heard is it is Margaret, is a meta march. It's a really good range march. It's going to trade really amazingly, and it is going to do good. Gajamada and also Barber, I'm both going to put into the decent tier because they're really good marches to run if you're a ranged main, but if not, they're probably not the best. I'd rather run something like a Gorbato and a Margaret. Chandragupta is mid nowadays. His debuffs are really outclassed. His damage is quite low. Charlemagne is trash. Martel, decent. Can maybe get away with him with some weird commander pairings, but he's not my number one go-to. CJ, probably mid nowadays, damage quite low, no real debuffs, not much given to you on the open field. There's almost no reason to run him. Cleopatra is trash, YSS is trash, Gilgamesh, mid. He's got an okay debuff, he's got some weird unique quirks to him that might be useful to you. Generally, though, I'd say he's probably a below average commander nowadays, considering his age and considering that he doesn't have the highest stats in the game. Edward of Woodstock, trash in my opinion. He's definitely not very good to run nowadays. Way too slow of a rage cycle commander. Bearable in KVK2 maybe. Other than that, I wouldn't run him. El Cid, also a trash commander. Constantine, probably mid on the field. You can use him as a tank. That's about it. He's pretty tanky. I think he's got some okay buffs to him, but he's not going to be your go-to choice. Frederick is trash. Belisarius, decent. With the release of Arthur, I think there are better commanders over Belisarius nowadays. I think maybe I should have put a niche tier on the list. If there was a niche tier, I think Belisarius would make the cut for that tier because it just makes sense. Belisarius is a very, very niche commander. If you got a 5-march ball, it's going to be amazing. If not, he's not going to be as good. I did add a niche tier. I think it just makes sense. Niche commanders, just to quickly rephrase it, they're commanders who can perform at a meta level, but they just need to be in a right modable situation, or they need to suit your account. And I'll tell you when that is. Obviously, for range commanders, you need to have a range account. And for Belisarius, you need to have a very big modable, and you need to have a Houche Bing. Otherwise, he's just not going to be as good. But if you have a big ball and you got a Houche Bing, Belisarius Prime can do pretty good. Zenobia is trash on the field. Hannibal Barca is trash. Ragnar, the best. I mean, Ragnar's DPS, his amount of damage is ridiculous with CPO. It's an amazing march. It's meta for sure. It's definitely up there in the best tier. Houche Bing, definitely up there with the meta. I don't think he's the best. I still think that someone in the newer commanders may be a little bit better than them. AoE commanders will outdo them. But I think Houche Bing is a very, very powerful cav commander. Amazing with Belisarius, amazing with Arthur, amazing with Joan. Even works very well with Nevsky. Houche Bing, cannot go wrong with him. I think he's a very powerful commander nowadays and still does trade amazingly on the open field. Ramses, definitely at the mid tier. CPO, also meta. I think Ragnar and Leelchair are just a little bit stronger than CPO, but he is definitely within the meta range. He gets very good trades. He works amazingly with anyone in the best tier that is an infantry commander, and he is going to do a lot of damage on the field. So CPO, I definitely mess with him. I think he is a good commander, and he is going to trade pretty well. Leonidas, on the other hand, is not going to. He's definitely in that trash tier. Guan Yu, I think we put him in decent. He's not really a niche commander. You just need to have a good infantry commander for him, and he can be okay. He would not be my number one go-to by any means nowadays. Nowadays, he's really old. His silence debuff, while amazing, is still very nice, but the rest of his kit sucks. It's just as simple as that, so it's not worth the trade-off in most situations to lose such a big trade just to get his silence debuff. It can be a really good supporting aspect to Guan. If he didn't have it, he'd probably be in the mid or trash tier, but otherwise he is probably a decent commander. He's going to be towards the top of that tier, but in my opinion, he just is an absolute meta. Honda is definitely in the decent tier with Mehmed. They're pretty much equal strength. So Honda, he's decent. You could pretty much use him with anyone, but he isn't going to be absolute meta. Same thing with Bertrand. Decent-ish cav commander on the open field. He's definitely not very good, but he is decent. I don't think he's at the level of the mid commanders who are really, really bad. Flavius is probably around mid. He's just got some slightly okay stats because he is slightly newer, but he's not going to be very powerful on the field. Nebu, decent archer commander in my opinion. Works quite versatile with a lot of different archer commanders, but not absolute meta. Artemisia, probably mid nowadays. She only works well with Boudica, and Boudica is going to be in the niche tier. I'll just spoil that now, because she's just getting older, and Artemisia is not her best pairing nowadays. There are a lot more stronger commanders who are going to hit harder and work better with Boudica. Genghis Khan, mid as well. I would say edging onto the trash tier. He's just not a very good commander in any situation. His stats are about below average by like 30%. So he's not the best commander. There are definitely better. Speaking of better, Arthur Pendragon, absolute meta, the best commander in the game. I think he is probably the best in the game right now. Maybe tied with Liu Che and Zhu Lang, and I'll put Zhu Lang into the best tier as well. These three commanders are absolute meta right now, absolute dominant. They're all AoE beasts. They pretty much win almost every single trade, and they're going to be the best commanders in the game. Arthur Pendragon, newest Cav commander, insane stats. He's got the ability to do combo damage. He's got the ability to do ridiculous amounts of normal direct damage, and he pairs really well with a lot of Cav commanders. So Arthur, really, really good commander right now. Investment-wise, also amazing. Just as a note, again, didn't take that into account here, but that is really interesting to note. He's a really good investment. And on top of that, he's just really powerful in the field. I think Arthur Pendragon, absolute killer of a March to use on the open field, and he is going to do really well. Zulang, same situation. Ridiculous amounts of Archer AoE damage, and I think that it, again, just means he's going to be a very, very powerful commander who's going to get really good trades. So those two commanders, including Liu Che, so those three commanders, all really good in AoE, and all are going to get amazing trades. Suleiman, definitely trash. Harold is probably at a mid-tier nowadays. I think Harold just gets outclassed by a lot of commanders. I was tossing putting him in mid. I just don't see him on the field anymore. I don't see any reason to run him almost at all. It just doesn't make sense. Him and Pakal, both as a tanking march, just don't work as well as they used to, and they're not even within, in my opinion, like the top 4 to 5 infantry marches. Joan is definitely probably in the meta or the best. I mean, I'm tossing up between putting her in the best. She's a really good Cav commander with her AoE, and she is a beast. Now, I don't think she's better than Nevsky and Hao Bing in terms of strength. She needs them to do really well, but overall, she's a very powerful commander, and she's got her place in the meta, and it is a very nice place. Jadwiga's probably a trash commander on the open field. Jan Ziska, mid. He's not amazing. His stats are okay because he's new, but that's about it. Caesar's also mid. Niche situations, you can use him, but he's not even that good in those situations. So I think overall he is probably around that mid tier. Eleanor also mid, mainly because she's newer. You can maybe work with her, but she's not going to be very good at all. Lubu, absolute trash. Pakal, I'm also going to put into mid. Same reasons as Harold. Not the best commander nowadays. I very rarely see the March, if ever, and it just isn't going to be trading as good as it used to. Old Ragnar, probably trash. I don't see a reason to run him. You could just get a Takeda at this point, especially if you do a commander swap. I guess I could put him in mid. Maybe it does kind of make sense to put him in the mid tier, but he just isn't going to be absolute meta. There are definitely a lot more stronger commanders who are more deserving of a higher tier. Henry, niche. If you're running a lot of Archer Marchers, you can get away with him, but he's not going to be the absolute best. William Wallace, he's meta. Really good with Leo Chair. Solid, smite commander, good single target damage, good open field murderable support with his shielding effect and the way he removes slows. So I do think that he's a pretty decent commander. Boudica Prime, niche. If you're running around three Archer Marchers, I'd say she's probably worth grabbing. But if you're running around 2, there are just better commanders. Moctezuma obviously is trash. Cyrus is probably in the mid tier as well. He's got some use case. I like him with Henry. I've transmutated or swapped mine now, but I think that Cyrus isn't the absolute worst commander in the game. Ashida is up there with some of the worst though. Tariq, probably decent. I could say he's almost in the niche tier. He's a strong commander. He's just not the absolute meta. There are a lot of stronger and better infantry commanders, but he is not bad. Heraclius, probably mid. You can get away with him for a bit of field AoE because he's, again, a bit newer, but he's not going to be amazing. Sargon, definitely in the decent tier. There are a lot more stronger and better commanders than him, but he isn't too bad. Justinian is probably indecent as well. He's not the worst Cav commander. There are better, but I do think Justinian is relatively solid. Pyrrhus is probably in the decent tier as well. Solid infantry commander, can maybe get away with him. It's a very good KVK 1 and 2. Season 3 and onwards, he's probably a little bit below average, which is why I think decent is fair for him. Minamoto, same case, worthy of the decent tier. Good damage, good stats, can work in Season 3 with a lot of different Cav commanders, just not the absolute meta. Ditto, definitely trash on the field. Richard, definitely trash on the field. Saladin, probably mid. There's definitely a lot more better commanders. Thutmose, definitely a mid commander. There are a lot more stronger archer commanders and commanders who just do what he does at a higher tier, even when he is relicked. Herman Prime, I'm putting him in the meta. I don't think he's the best anymore. There are some slightly stronger commanders than Herman nowadays, and the fact that he's starting to get a bit power creep, there's a lot more not very skilled damage-based commanders. So Herman, I think, is worthy of the meta tier. Ashurbanipal, similar situation. Very good AoE, possibly good single target damage if needed. He can be a nice commander to run. Not one of the best in the game, but definitely is a nice commander to use. Scipio Melianus, he's probably around the decent tier towards the bottom. Good because he's pretty much brand new, so he's going to trade decently, just not the most amazing in the game. Philip II, definitely at the top of the meta tier. I'd say he's almost into the best tier. Really powerful commander, super versatile, works with anyone, amazing for your murder ball. He is one of my favorite commanders at the moment as well, which might mean I'm a bit biased, but other than that, he is a very versatile, strong commander, and he is going to be quite powerful on the field. CJ, or CY, he's not the most amazing. He's probably mid. Amana Torre is probably trash at this point because she needs to work with Boudica, and they're not very good at this point. Shajar, meta, very good with Philip II. Very good. They work very amazingly. Probably one of the strongest archer commanders in the game. I don't think she's stronger than Nevsky, Hauchebing, and Joan, but she's there with the other 3 archer commanders. Sundok, definitely trash. Takeda, same tier as Ragnar, probably within the mid tier. Theodora's bad. Tomiris, probably mid. Her debuff is very much outclassed nowadays. Trajan, mid. You could just go get Philip II. Wizartian is trash. William, probably in the decent tier. I don't think he's niche. I think Belisarius takes that spot a little bit better. William is worthy of decent, though. He's not the worst commander. He's not the best commander. I think this is a valid spot to put him. Zhang Yu, very similar. Not the worst, not the best. Worthy of the decent tier. And finally, YSG is again the same. Not the worst, not the best. Worthy of the decent tier. One thing to note, I won't be ranking the new Cav Rally because he's not in the game yet, so I can't rank him. If I were to put a guess, he looks like he's going to be around the same strength as Scipio Emilianus, if not a tier lower around the mid tier. A lot of his stuff is very rally oriented. There's not much there that's good for the open field. A lot of his skills just say when he's attacking a stronghold, when he's attacking a city, whatever it may be. Otherwise, yeah, he's not going to be the best choice. So I think he'd be around the decent to mid tier. I'm not going to rank him though officially because I don't actually know how well he would do. So the new rally, no one knows how good he's going to be. So for now, I can't take him off the list, so I'll just leave him in trash. But he is not officially ranked. So keep that in mind. Not officially ranked. I'll probably put it in the pinned comment. I don't want to rank him yet until he is actually in the game. Again, if I was to guess, decent to mid tier. So I guess I'll put him in the mid tier for now. He'd be around that range. But I'm not officially putting a thing on him because I don't fully know. Other than that, this is the final tier list. I'll quickly move my webcam out of the way so you can see the full thing. That's the full tier list. I mean, I think it's very accurate to what we'd see on the open field nowadays. The best commanders are obviously going to be the best. A lot of the meta commanders are still run. A lot of players still invest in them and use them. The niche commanders, we see them, but they're rare. And the decent commanders, they're very rarely seen. A lot of older murder balls might use them. People with lots of marches may use them, but they're not going to be a number 1 pick. And most of the stuff below that, if you see it, you pretty much gun for it because you know it's going to be free kills. So anything below decent, I pretty much wouldn't even consider running unless you're in like a really bad situation. But otherwise, this is pretty much the full tier list. And in my opinion, it is probably 80 to 90% accurate. So now with that out of the way, if you enjoyed today's tier list, found it interesting, or you disagree with something, please tell me in the comments down below. Comments are a really good way for me to gauge, A, if I got it right, do you think most of the commanders are correct? And B, if I got it wrong, do you think I'm just completely out of whack with some of the commanders? Why the hell would I put, for example, let's say you think Joan deserves to be in the best tier, why the hell is she in the meta tier? Write it in the comments. I pretty much read every comment. I'm a bit slower nowadays with it, but I will get around to it, probably around a week late, but I will get to it. So put your comments down there. Other people can see them too, so if I am wrong about something, go check out the comments if you think I'm wrong, and if other people agree, that generally means I may be wrong about it. I'm not perfect, don't get everything right, so tell me in the comments what I got wrong. But other than that, if you enjoyed today's video, I'm glad you did. I just want to say thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.